This is a special edition of Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand. I just talked to you guys a few hours ago, but that was before Suni Lee of St. Paul won the gold medal in the Women's Gymnastics Olympics all around in Tokyo. We don't do a lot of these special delivery podcasts, but this certainly qualifies as a reason to do one. Hope you listen to the regular show today as well. Lots of content for you today. I'll talk to Jim Souhan here in just a little bit. Jim Souhan is in Tokyo covering the Olympic Games along with Rachel Blount from the Star Tribune. I'll speak with Zoe Jackson, Star Tribune reporter, who has added a watch party for Suni Lee. Whole family, like 300 people there out in Oakdale watching Suni Lee claim the gold medal Thursday. Very early she had to get up, and all of those folks had to get up to watch a historic moment when she was able to claim the gold medal. And I'll talk to Naila-Jean Meyers, our Olympics editor for the Star Tribune. Some great perspective from her on just how Suni Lee was able to do it kind of from a technical standpoint. Let's hop right in. I've got Jim Souhan here right now.
Happy to be joined right now on this special edition of Daily Delivery by Jim Souhan. He is in Tokyo, where not too long ago, Suni Lee won the gold in the women's gymnastics all-around. Jim, an Olympics filled with unbelievable storylines already, and this one, from a Minnesota standpoint at least, doesn't get much bigger than this.
No, I'm just finishing up my column. This is stunning. This is stunning for all the obvious reasons. This is an 18-year-old woman who wasn't the best gymnast on her own team a few days ago, and now she's, at least has the title of the best gymnast in the world. She did it after Simone Biles withdrew. I mean, I just expected her to be in shock. I mean, I know she's good enough to medal, but for her to win gold under these circumstances, right after her high school graduation, I don't know. I don't know how these people do it. I really don't. I don't know how I just don't know. I don't get it. I don't get how an 18-year-old can perform like that under these circumstances. And so listen, if she had been expected to win and she had won a gold medal, that would be one of the great stories in Minnesota sports history. For her to do it under these circumstances, I just don't know. I don't know really what the parallel is.
I don't either. It's amazing. It's everything that you could want for in an Olympic story. And you've been kind of covering this, from the jump, and wrote a really good column the other day about Simone Biles. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that and just kind of, the mood shift over the last 3 days, and then the spotlight that did put on Suni Lee to a certain degree.
Starting with Biles, listen, I just think we, as a sports society, we're being forced to grow up. We all love the mythology of the injured athlete, performing at a championship level. We all loved it when somebody gets sick or hurt and still perform. We love Willis Reed. Even though Willis Reed scored like 2 points in that game and did nothing after the first 2 minutes, we just love the story. We love mythology. We love cartoon characters. We're being forced to accept that these are human beings, that and maybe it's exacerbated by social media and all the morons in our society, but these people are constantly under fire. Sometimes they're under fire from sports columnists, and I have to kind of examine my own role in all that. But these people are sometimes they're hurting, and it really reminds me of I probably know the Twins better than I know any team in town. I've had players tell me sometimes on the record, "Hey, the best thing. I loved being part of a team. I hated felt like I had to perform every single day in public." Mm-hmm. It really takes a toll, and we need to accept that. Simone Biles, and that's the thing. I think we have to redefine athletic bravery, redefine bravery. What Simone Biles did was say, I'm not going to go out there and literally break my neck because people want to be entertained, and I think that's very brave of her. And listen, she's a young black woman in modern day America. She knows what kind of reaction that was going to elicit. She knew who she was going to bring out of the woodwork. I think it was incredibly brave of her just to stand up for herself. And I think Suni Lee offered us a different version of bravery. I wrote about this in my column. It'll be out in Tomorrow's Favors, probably online by the time people hear this. I watched her before the balance beam, and she had a long wait. I think she was the last to go or the next last to go, and there were commercial breaks and there were other people doing things, and she was like doing all these nervous things. I mean, she was like holding her stomach and bending her. I'm thinking, God, she's not going to be able to function. And then actually when she started the balance beam, that was probably her weakest moment of this night. She was just a little wobbly early. And then she gathered herself and she stuck the landing. She killed the floor exercise, and her coach just told Rachel and me that was the first time she had ever performed that version of the floor exercise. They decided at the last second, let's not do the fourth pass. Her legs are beat up. She's kind of been dealing with some injuries. She probably can win it without going to, again, 18-year-old on that stage, just, oh, hey, go try this new floor routine and try to win the gold. It's just amazing stuff.
Well, and this is an athlete, too, if I'm not mistaken, that dealt with so many injuries over the last year, right? I mean, this was, there was the mental and physical grind of having to wait a whole year to do these Olympics, and it took a toll on her, if I'm not mistaken. I believe Rachel and I have talked about that.
Yeah, and she admitted that in the post-meet press conference. She said that she had considered quitting, that COVID took a toll on her. 2019, her father was paralyzed. She did deal with a lot of leg injuries, and as her coach was saying, in gymnastics, there's no way to really compensate. I mean, you got to land on both feet. You can't take it easy on one leg when you're doing a vault. So the fact that she was, her ankle would hurt, and then her opposite hamstring would hurt because the ankle hurt, and she was, that's another thing about gymnastics. My wife's daughter was a gymnast and lives in pain. I mean, the body is not supposed to do what they do. The best description I've heard in the last 24 hours is gymnastics is diving without the water.
Yeah.
There's just nowhere to go. You're going to land hard every single time. You have to practice landing hard. They just get beat up. And, her coach was saying tonight, hey, she is beat up. She's beat up right now. She's still won the gold. Yeah,
it's a remarkable story. How is that? I mean, you're on the scene right now, but it's got to be a little bit strange. I mean, these aren't full stands. But I did understand that Simone Biles was there cheering very loudly and just kind of being supportive. Now, what was the atmosphere-wise? What's it been like there?
I mean, it's weird because I think I'm so used to empty stands now that when I hear a little cheering section of coaches and teammates, it actually sounds almost loud to me, because I'm so used to truly empty stadiums now. So it wasn't rocking, but there was enough noise there that the atmosphere was pretty cool.
Well, that's cool. And so now she's got a couple more events to go. I mean, how do you? I don't know how you top that, but you don't really need to at this point. That's the story in and of itself right now is remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how she gathered. I mean, I guess I didn't expect her to do this. So maybe she does gather herself and win another medal or something. But I mean, she never does anything the rest of her life in gymnastics. She's already done it. It would be, of course, we're all greedy in sports. It would be great to see her do even more. I don't know, maybe Grace McCallum pulls one out. I mean, she's a very composed young lady herself. But to me, we've already made the Olympics. I mean, this is it. I mean, there are a lot of other cool things that could happen, but if nothing else cool happens, we're good.
Is this, I mean, I think you were trying to contextualize this at the beginning of the segment, but I mean, if we think back on Minnesota Olympic moments, and certainly we've had plenty of amazing ones. You had the curling in the last Winter Olympics. You had Jessie Diggins in that amazing, Nordic ski race. But I mean, in terms of like someone from Minnesota, having such a large share of the spotlight. I mean, I don't want to get, maybe this is a recency bias. I mean, are we going all the way back to like Miracle on Ice stuff with all those Minnesota players on that team, or am I overstepping there? Are there moments that, again, comparisons are one thing, but just try to get a sense of the magnitude of this moment, especially for Minnesota.
Yeah, well, I mean, the magnitude is off the charts, and I guess Miracle on Ice, that's one of the great, let's face it, it's one of the great moments in Minnesota sports history, even though it wasn't technically a Minnesota team. There are just so many Minnesota connections, a Minnesota coach, all those other things. You can claim that. I guess what I'm doing though in my column is I'm trying to find ways to. I'm saying it's different when it's an individual sport.
Yeah.
Nobody can help you. Nobody can help you.
Yep.
So I just think it's different, and that puts this on a different level for me. Lindsey Vonn being going from Buck Hill to winning golds as the number one skier in the world. But you know what though? I don't know. This probably has more to do with my biases than any kind of reality. But Lindsey didn't live in Minnesota that long, and she became an international superstar. And then she won the gold, and she was already on cover. She was expected to win the gold. And as cool as it is, and as much as you definitely can claim her from being from Apple Valley and grew up on the slopes of Buck Hill, Suni Lee lives in St. Paul. She trained at a Minnesota gym with a Minnesota coach who she met when she was 6. She's from an immigrant family that wants they want to make America as good as it can be. They want to be a part of the fabric of our society. This is different. This is different and better, I think.
Yeah, let's face it, like women's gymnastics, I don't know if there's a more marquee Olympic sport right now. So to have someone from Minnesota with that story win a gold medal in the marquee individual event, remarkable stuff. Again, we're probably going to be processing this for days, but for now, Jim Souhan, any final thoughts before I let you go? I'm sure it's been a busy whirlwind last 7 days, whatever it's been so far.
I don't. I'm just, when you cover sports for a living, it's like any other job. There are a lot of boring Tuesdays. There's just a lot. Every day isn't going to be Christmas. I remember, the Sports Illustrated writer Rick Riley. I was hanging out with him at the Super Bowl like back in the 90s, and he said, everywhere we go, they think it's New Year's and we think it's Wednesday morning. It's the sports writer life. You're always around people who are just desperate for something interesting or good to happen. And because of that, we are a little jaded and we're just kind of used to this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then something like this happens and you actually look down and you're actually like, your hands are shaking. This is what you do this for. This is these are the great stories we wait for.
Well, I'm looking forward to reading how you tell that story. Read Star Tribune, StarTribune.com, always for Jim Souhan and Rachel Blount's coverage from the Tokyo Olympics. You guys are doing a great job. Jim, thanks for hopping on today, and we'll catch you soon, all right?
Great. Thank you, Michael.
Great perspectives from Jim. He's been doing a tremendous job throughout this whole Olympics. Like I told him, I loved his Simone Biles column the other day, and I really loved the idea of these moments that we get caught up in as sports writers, how there are a lot of mundane games. If you cover a beat, 90% of the games are going to feel kind of similar, unless you cover the Twins, and then they lose in spectacular fashion a lot. But if you're doing just kind of, if you're covering sports as a livelihood, there's exciting moments, but the ebbs and flows generally aren't as high as they are for those people who are just invested in the game, those individual moments. Then something like this happens and it totally changes your perspective, reminds you just exactly why you do this, that is a gift to be able to watch these moments, to witness them, and to try to describe them. So I really like that aspect of what Jim Souhan had to say. Happy to be joined on this special edition of Daily Delivery by Zoe Jackson, reporter with the Star Tribune. Happened to be in Oakdale for a watch party as Suni Lee took the gold on what turned out to be early Thursday morning for us. Zoe, welcome to Daily Delivery, first-time guest. How are you today?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Tell me a little bit about this watch party, because it sounds like it got to be a pretty big deal, right?
Yeah. What started in a small space turned into having to get a whole event center to hold all of Suni Lee's friends and family who were excited to be together to celebrate her, since, of course, her parents couldn't make it out to Tokyo due to the pandemic. So lots of hugs and tears and supporting her parents and siblings especially. Yeah, what was you said like 300 people were there maybe? What was the scene like? Was it tense as she was competing? Was it just, there were a lot of good moments for her, so hopefully it wasn't too tense on their end. Yeah, I mean, it was kind of set up like an auditorium with a bunch of folks in chairs, and when she was performing, it was pretty silent. I mean, during her uneven bars, which is like her specialty, I mean, people weren't as nervous there, but during the later events for sure, like you could feel the anxiety in the air a little bit. And her mom definitely talked to us about how the beam itself is like super scary for her as a mom, and a lot of gym moms typically close their eyes, but she was like, no, I kept mine open the whole time. And her family members were holding her hands and that kind of thing. But yeah, in between events, it was super celebratory and kind of interesting to watch because NBC was streaming it live. So people were kind of like, doing all these shenanigans and stuff because it ended up being streamed, internationally during the game.
That's pretty cool. And what a moment for her. And you happen to be talking to her older sister, Cheyenne, I think, right at a pretty pivotal moment. We're going to play the clip right now of you talking to Cheyenne, and I want to ask you about that in just a minute here.
How are you feeling right now? I know you're crying. I just have no words. I'm so proud of her. I'm so excited. Oh my God. I have no words. Yeah, I'm very emotional, but I'm just so proud of her. I just know how hard she works.
Do you wish you were with her right
now? I wish I can give her a big hug right now. I've been texting her all day today. I'm just so proud. She's calling me right now.
Okay, so describe that moment again. You're talking to her, and then basically Suni Lee calls her, FaceTimes her from Tokyo, right?
Yeah, I was interviewing her like right after we kind of all realized that she would take gold, and she was talking about how she wished she was with Suni and how she wished she could give her a hug and tell her how proud of all her hard work that Cheyenne was. And then she got a call from Suni and she started screaming like, she's calling me. And then she answered the FaceTime call and like spun around and showed the whole auditorium to her sister, and everyone was screaming and cheering. And yeah, it was really cool. And then, she hung up, and then we saw her on stage at the podium, basically. So
That's unbelievable. What a moment for, Minnesota, for Suni Lee, for the United States, that she was still able to capture the gold after, everything that's been happening in the last few days with Simone Biles withdrawing and things of that nature. But also a huge moment in the Hmong community. I know you talked to some folks over at the watch party about kind of the broader context there. Can you speak to that aspect of this story?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even before the gold medal, Suni had become the, first Hmong American Olympian, and now the first Hmong American gold medalist. And a lot of folks there were talking about how Suni is an example for the Hmong community. Like, if she can do it, then I can do it. And it doesn't have to be also doing the Olympics, but just that you can do it. And a lot of people were also excited to share like the story of the Hmong people, because a lot of people outside of Minnesota maybe don't know as much. And especially like during the NBC stream, they kind of talked about that, and people got really excited, and it was really cool. And a lot of folks were just talking about how she's such a hopeful light for the community, especially the community in St. Paul, where she's from.
Yeah. And then last thing for you, Zoe, thanks so much for hopping on short notice. I'm sure it's been a long morning and day already. Those things start early. Just the time difference with Tokyo. Some of these things are on either really late or really early. Does the family have any kind of what comes next? I'm sure they can't wait to see Suni again at some point, but are there, what's next for the Lee family?
Well, they said they were still kind of brainstorming how they're going to celebrate when she gets home. But, Suni has 2 more events, and her mom especially was talking about how empty it's felt without her being at home with them. So I know they're really excited to welcome her back, probably with a lot of fanfare in another week or so.
Yeah, whenever she comes back to St. Paul, it's going to be like there's going to be a parade. It feels like we don't have these moments all that often, especially in the summer games. And for a Minnesotan to win basically the signature event of a summer games, and have someone like Reagan Smith doing so well too, with 2 medals already in the swimming. It is a sight to behold. Well, Zoe Jackson, thanks so much for joining me here on Daily Delivery, and maybe we'll chat again down the road. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Good stuff from Zoe. Hadn't talked to her before for this podcast, but she did a great job kind of capturing the scene in St. Paul. Loved a scene in Oakdale, as it were, actually, and loved that that she was able to get that audio of that moment between Suni Lee and her sister Cheyenne. Happy to be joined now by Naila-Jean Meyers, editor at the Star Tribune, is spearheading our Olympics coverage. You've probably heard her on Daily Delivery as the voice of the Star Tribune promo sometimes, but she does about 18 other things at the Star Tribune that are far more important than that. One of them, of course, being our Olympics coverage, and no bigger story than the one that emerged Thursday, Naila, with Suni Lee winning the gold medal. First off, how are you doing? How's the coverage coming together?
I'm not sleeping a lot, Mike, but that's to be expected. It's an Olympics. There's not a lot of sleep involved, especially when the Olympics are in Asia and the time change is as big as this one is. But it's exciting. It's exciting. It's been almost a week, which I can't believe. It's flown by very quickly. It
has. And, the days get longer when we have big stories. We've already had, Reagan Smith winning a couple medals. The Simone Biles story was, of course, a huge international story, connected to the Suni Lee gold medal in a way, because it opened the door, at least for St. Paul's Suni Lee, to win the gold. But she still had plenty she had to do. It wasn't just like this was handed to her. What I'd love to hear from you, Naila, as someone who's done plenty of Olympics coverage in the past, is has a vested kind of skill set and knowledge in all this. How did she do it? What was the kind of the secret recipe for Suni Lee to claim the gold on Thursday?
Suni has been very consistent this whole Olympics. In fact, she's been consistent since the trials this whole year. And it's been one of the marks of her performance is just the consistency of it. She does not make a lot of mistakes. And, even in events where her difficulty score is lower than other gymnasts, like the floor or the vault, she's performing cleanly. So she's not getting a lot of deductions. And that consistency over time is how you get an all-around gold medal. And, when Simone went out, and Simone Biles, her level of difficulty, her scores are so high that she's kind of untouchable. And even if she makes mistakes, she can still win because her difficulty is so high. And you take that out of the equation, then it really becomes even more important to be clean and to not make mistakes. And Suni did that. And just the moment that I think everyone remembers and will remember for a long time is how she stayed on the beam when she was leaning backwards, and she sort of grabbed the beam with her toes and stayed on. And that was not all the difference, but it was a huge difference. And she did her high difficulty uneven bars routine. She did it great. She got a huge score, which lifted her back up after vault, which is it's not her best event. She was in fourth after the vault, but she put in a huge score in the next event, her uneven bars, and then she stayed on the beam. And a lot of gymnasts today did not stay on the beam. And she got a great score in the beam, and that put her in her first place. And according to Rachel, who's been, telling me some stuff that she's got from her reporting, that Suni changed her floor exercise routine today in order to kind of reduce the risk and make sure she was clean and consistent and got a really solid score. And she did it great. She did it clean. She only did 3 tumbling passes instead of 4. And she got a score that Rebecca Andrade of Brazil had to beat. Now, Rebecca Andrade, if she performs clean, could have beaten that score because she has a high degree of difficulty. But she didn't perform clean. She went out of bounds on 2 tumbling passes, and that kind of sealed it for Suni. But it was because of consistency across 4 events, really clean performances, and really limiting her mistakes, that Suni did it. And she seemed so calm too. And, she seemed really loose. And even though afterwards she talked about the pressure she was feeling after Simone Biles had withdrawn and all eyes were kind of on Suni, while watching it, she seemed really calm and relaxed, and she really held on, and she really showed what it means to be solid and consistent. And it was really impressive.
Yeah, Jim Souhan, I talked to him earlier for the show. He said the same thing, that she had kind of reduced that risk in that last floor exercise routine. And he said, what we saw on TV was probably after she'd shaken out all the nerves because, kind of as she was waiting to do the beam, he said she was going through all sorts of nervous looking mechanisms. Maybe it's a routine, maybe it's just kind of what she does. But by the time she got up on the beam and then was able to, like you said, gather herself there, she looked very focused and very comfortable from that point forward. And again, you kind of have to lock in and just do that. Strategy wise, gymnastics is interesting because you're talking about kind of adding and subtracting difficulty. It does kind of become a game of, trying to figure out what your opponent might do, how much, how many points you want to leave out there, and kind of putting the pressure on, at least with that floor exercise, reducing her risk and making sure she puts up a solid score and kind of putting the pressure on her opponent.
Yeah. When I was watching it before I knew this reporting, I noticed she only did 3 tumbling passes, and I thought, that's interesting. And I thought to myself, I guess they're trying to reduce risk there. And I think it made me just at home watching a little nervous. It probably made Suni nervous too, waiting for her score, knowing the kind of score that Rebecca Andre can put up. But I mean, the strategy worked out, and we can talk about her, Suni, being I believe it's the 5th American woman in a row to win this gold medal. This is kind of a medal that American gymnastics has kind of had a lock on, and it's very, very cool that our own gymnast has it, an Asian gymnast too, and great for her community here, for Minnesota, for gymnastics. And it was a really cool thing to watch.
Especially, we've spent so much time in the last few days talking about Simone Biles, and she was, obviously she had pulled out of the team competition. She pulled out of the individual all around. Sounds like she was there in full throat, cheering on her teammates, cheering on other gymnasts, even from other countries, just to, compete your best, do your best here, which I thought was pretty cool. But, Suni, I'm still trying to wrap my head around the perspective on this story. And Jim and I talked about this a little bit too, just like, it's hard to define in the moment, like where something ranks in a state's sports history. But my goodness, an 18-year-old from St. Paul who trains here, lives here, just got done with high school, winning a gold medal at the Olympics in the all around. That's got to be pretty high up there in our sports moments in history, does it not?
Yes. I mean, that's Wheaties box stuff.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It's Wheaties box. It's commercials on TV over and over. And Suni's been in plenty of commercials during these Olympics, which is cool. But this is Wheaties box stuff. This is, for 8 years from now, her being in commercials. This is her cementing her place, and in these sort of wild circumstances. We're going to be talking about this gymnastics competition for years and years and years. And I think, being the number 2 gymnast in the U.S. is behind Simone Biles can be a place that you can get comfortable. Maybe there's less pressure on you because you've got this big shining star in front of you, and to suddenly have it go and have that be gone and handle that pressure and seize the moment for herself was really wonderful. And I think it will be, for Minnesota sports fans, something they'll remember where they were and what they were doing.
No doubt. Well, Naila, you're doing a great job coordinating all this coverage. It's been a lot already, and it's maybe it slows down a tiny bit now that some of the really, really marquee events are out of the way. But you know what?
She could win another gold medal, Mike.
I know she could. I mean, nothing's going to top all around. But yes, right. at a certain point, once we say that, then something else completely amazing will happen, because you never know at the Olympics, and that is part of the beauty of them. Well, Naila, thanks for hopping on Daily Delivery, the special edition today, and we'll talk to you again soon. All right.
Thanks, Mike.
And like Naila said, this is one of the all-time great moments in Minnesota sports history. We can kind of sort that all out. It's still all very fresh, just a few hours old at this moment. But kind of going forward, we're going to talk about this for years, for decades. This is a moment. This is a moment where you will remember exactly what happened. This is a very talked about event. This is a very talked about moment because of everything that happened leading up to it. And Suni Lee rising to the occasion in spectacular fashion, capturing the gold medal in the women's all-around at the Tokyo Olympics gymnastics. Unbelievable story. Thank you so much for being with me for a special edition of Daily Delivery. We'll do this again on Friday, and who knows, maybe there'll be another special edition because you never know in Minnesota sports.